What is going on, all you wonderful A-Plusers out there? It is I, Stuart, here once again with another review for Superman and Lois. This time I'm going to be talking about Season 3, Episode number 4. Another really solid episode this season. No surprise there, as, they've been just knocking it out of the park, these last 3 episodes, and this 4th episode, of course, is no exception. And, it's all, honestly, like, getting to the point where it's getting... The show is just constantly just improving on itself over and over, to where it's like, even though we're only 4 episodes in, it almost feels like I can already say this is turning out to be a better season than season 1 and 2, which is really saying something, because if you watch my reviews for those seasons, you know that I absolutely loved Superman and Lois season 1 and 2. So that all being said, let's talk about this episode, break it down, and I'll give you my overall thoughts and theories of what we might be able to expect going forward. So starting with the beginning of this, when it comes to John Henry Irons, he's going to be the first part of this episode that I'm going to be talking about. So John Henry Irons does some digging into, the attack on Lana Lang in Smallville, and he discovers that the weapon that was used against Superman in that same episode, the kryptonite weapon, could have possibly been built by the John Henry Irons of that Earth, because he notices that the tech is very similar to his own tech. But when he brings it up to this up to Superman kind of reveals to him that they already knew this, and that they had already been doing their own investigation, including Lois Lane trying to talk to his sister, which he was not happy about, because he wanted them to just let the case go. But them looking into it, of course, could have endangered him and his daughter, which, as we find out kind of later, or as he mentions later on, wasn't necessarily the case, as that wasn't really what put his family in danger. It was more, what happened with Lana that put them in danger, and less of Lois doing her own investigation. But regardless, he wasn't too happy to find out about it, but it is something that does kind of get worked out at the very end. However, he does decide to kind of do his own investigating, so he does go to finally meet his sister, and I was very curious on how she was going to react to seeing her dead brother alive, and then finding out that it's actually not her brother. And I think the scene was actually very well handled. He did a really good job of calming her down before it got to a point where she would have freaked out, because kind of the same way I feel like anyone would have if they saw one of their loved ones suddenly back from the dead, but immediately making sure to let her know that he's not him, he's not her brother, and letting her know that he's from another world. And something that I totally forgot about was the fact that pretty much everyone on Earth is at this point fully aware of the existence of other worlds, because of the events of season 2, with there being basically an entire square sun in their solar system, and that sun itself having a world of its own. So something I didn't consider, but made absolutely total sense to me after it was explained. So for her, it was really easy to it was a lot easier than if this had happened at the beginning of season 2. Then it would have been an even bigger shock, because then it would have been oh, you're not my brother. Oh, other worlds apparently exist. But again, because she actually knows about the existence of other worlds, it didn't come off as big of a shock as it really could have. But regardless, he does try to do some investigating to find out more about himself from this Earth, but she gives him all the information that she knows, which is that it seemed like he was apparently selling weapons to both Bruno Mannheim and Lex Luthor. And when essentially her dad tried to confront him about this, he didn't deny it, and that's what led her to believe that he might have actually done it. And the fact that he basically kind of cut her out of his life, and then just straight up said that you would be better off if I wasn't your brother, basically if I wasn't in your life. There was also a funny nod to the Wonder Twins, because the two of them were inseparable, as they say, and apparently their dad would refer to them as the Wonder Twins, and I thought that was a pretty funny shout out there. But Bruno Mannheim is not happy to learn about this John Henry Irons, and to know that this John Henry Irons is working with Superman, and the fact that Superman, of course, works with Lois Lane, who will not leave Bruno Mannheim alone and let him just do his thing. So Bruno Mannheim takes John Henry Irons into his house and basically threatens him, and threatens to kill his sister if he doesn't stay out of his affairs. And this I thought was kind of funny because up until this point, there hasn't really been anything to suggest that John Henry Irons was even interested in pursuing Bruno Mannheim in Bruno Mannheim's overall, like, in his perspective. There was nothing to really indicate that he should have had to worry about John Henry Irons, or this new John Henry Irons anyways. So to me, I think, him suddenly taking John Henry Irons against his will and then threatening his sister if he didn't leave him alone, I think that was a huge miscalculation on his part. As, I feel like if Bruno Mannheim just, let John Henry Irons do his thing and then just like let it all pass, I feel like he things would have been a lot easier for him. Let's just say that. So I feel like this was definitely a big miscalculation on his part. Of course, John Henry Irons is pissed off, so he basically escapes, goes and rescues his sister, and is pretty much prepping to put more security around not just his sister, but his other family, because as he was about to basically kill Bruno Mannheim for this, wow, saying his name over and over, it kind of, it's a tongue twister. Bruno Mannheim. So anyways, Bruno Mannheim did say that if John Henry Irons were to kill him, that he would then cut his henchmen would go after his whole family, and not just his sister, but also his family in New Orleans as well. So basically his full extended family and whatnot. So that's kind of where things are left off there. So John Henry Irons is basically kind of now prepping more than ever to take down Bruno Mannheim. So going to Jonathan Kent, he'll be the next character I talk about, because we pick things up with, again, him and Candace. Things are going good between them, but not with Candace's father, who is still big shock. An absolute huge piece of crap. Basically, when Jonathan goes to drop off Candace at her dad's place, he threatens Jonathan, basically telling him to stop spreading lies about him, which of course we know that that's not what happened. Jonathan, knew that he was the one to steal his truck, and even kind of calls him out on his BS by saying that Candace even found his mother's watch in his house. And that was followed by Jonathan getting punched by him. That's right, a full-grown adult punching a high schooler because he called him out for theft. So not only is this guy a piece of crap, but he's kind of a dangerous piece of crap, honestly. And, there's that whole thing that I'll get a little more into later, where, like, the only reason this guy isn't, being put away is because of, him being a dad, and, Jonathan Kent not wanting to have Candace not have a dad, basically. And it's really funny because in season 2, I thought Candace was a character kind of written to just be unlikable. I didn't know that this is the direction they were going to take her character, where she is kind of a victim of having a crappy dad, and not just an enabler, I guess you could say, for her dad to be a crappy dad. So it is really interesting with her character. I honestly didn't even think we were going to be getting this much of her in this season. I honestly thought, like, by now, like, maybe Jonathan would have moved on to another girlfriend, because of that happening basically in season 1 with him dating this one girl, and then, like, in the next season she's, like, never even brought up again. So I didn't really expect Candace to play this big of a part in the show, but she does, and I'm honestly kind of liking what they're doing with her right now. There's not really much in development for her character other than just kind of her learning, or fully accepting, I guess you could say, because I don't think she ever really fully didn't realize it. I think she realized it the whole time. She was just always was in self-denial about how crappy her dad is. So now I guess her, I am kind of curious if they're going to give her more of an arc later on. But then we're going to take a little break there from talking about her dad. We will get back to him, of course. But let's talk about the Cushings. Now, this is the part of the show that, I hear very mixed opinions about when people talk about Superman and Lois. Basically, it's like with the Cushings, what they kind of do is they really do help ground the show and make it feel like it's something that could really take place in the real world. However, there is very mixed opinions about that. You have some fans who love it, and then some fans who just think this is padding for the episode. For me, I'm somewhere in the middle. When they have good writing going on, when the story between them is interesting, I'm definitely invested. But there are times where I can kind of see where other people are coming from, where it does feel like they're just there to pad out the episodes. Here though, I really don't think they're just padding out the episodes. I really do kind of like the story that's going on right now with Lana Lang, with everything that she has to deal with, and then also suddenly losing it and making doing something that she completely regrets, which is of course slapping Sarah. But this is of course after Sarah was giving her attitude, and it was kind of cool to have them finally have this conversation at the diner. Sarah kind of just explaining that this all feels like nothing feels the same because of the divorce. A lot of things feel different, and I guess even though this doesn't get directly said, it really almost does feel like Sarah has a little like a little bit of anger, like subliminal anger towards her mom, specifically just for not forgiving Kyle or not taking him back in. And it's almost like she's like, angry at her mom for it, even though she knows that, her mom has every right to not forgive him if that's the choice she wants to make. So it's like she has this anger. She doesn't know really how to express it. And I think that's what kind of led her to saying what she said before her mother slapped her. But either way, I did think this scene was really good, and it just felt very realistic. Again, it's one of those things where I think everything going on with the Cushings is what really helps ground the show and makes it feel like it's something that could take place in the real world. And it's one of the things that I really love about the show overall is the fact that you can have moments like this. So now we get to what I think is probably the highlight of the episode, which is Elizabeth Tulloch's performance. Now, in this whole episode, this is a little bit from what we see in the previous episode, which is, of course, she has now started her treatment on chemo. But the one thing that she tells Clark in the previous episode is she does not want to be treated like she is fragile. She is still the same person, and she refuses to let the cancer control her. And for the most part, Clark wants to respect this, but he also, believes that because she just had her first treatment, she needs some rest, so she needs everyone staying out of her hair. So she tells Jonathan and Jordan to basically just leave her alone, which ends up being something that she does not appreciate, of course. Despite the cancer, she doesn't want to be treated differently from anyone. So when she finds out later on about Jonathan being hit by Candace's dad, and the fact that, before this happened, of course, when Clark originally, this was of course before the punch, when Clark had told the boys to leave her alone, she is of course she was also kind of upset with Clark. And this does, there wasn't an argument, which is what I really liked about it. Immediately, when she breaks this down to Clark does agree that he was out of line to tell them not to do that. And so I even like the fact that Clark himself kind of says to the kids, I shouldn't have told you to leave her alone. I shouldn't have said that to you too. That was my mistake. And that's something I love about the Superman, a Superman who is willing to admit when he makes a mistake like that. So I really appreciated that moment. But of course, Lois is not happy about, finding out that a grown adult, hit her kid. So she goes to confront Candace's dad. And basically, she just kind of tells him straight up, the only reason I am not calling the sheriff right now is because of, the situation with your daughter. And, rather than apologizing, being a mature man about this, he pulls a gun out. He doesn't pull it out with his hand or anything, but he definitely, having it tucked in under his pants, he lifts his shirt to show her that he has it, basically telling her and her kids, to get out of his lawn, or else, all hell's gonna break loose. And Lois, very much, still trying to stay strong, just tells him straight up, you stay the hell away from my family, before driving off. And when we get back to the farm, she basically nearly passes out from exhaustion which is understandable because, again, the fact that she was able to, stand up to him the way that she did, absolutely amazing. I mean, yeah, she has Superman as her husband, and then her son was right there, but at the same time, if the guy wanted to do something stupid, he could have, and even Superman, I don't think, would have been able to get there in time to save her. So you do have a moment where she passes out from the exhaustion and then just the overall kind of threat that she was given from that guy. And her performance, again, throughout this entire episode is just absolutely outstanding. I've been saying this for the past 2 seasons. She needs to be nominated for a freaking Emmy. All right. I mean, I don't care if she doesn't get it, but they need to acknowledge how amazing she's been in this show. So she needs to be at least nominated for an Emmy. I swear this needs to happen. We as Superman and Lois fans need a petition for her to get a freaking Emmy at some point. Again, absolutely amazing performance. But now we get to probably my favorite scene in this episode. And that is when Clark finds out about this and he goes to confront Candace's dad at the diner that Candace just happens to be working at that night, so she's there when this is going down. And we get a scene very similar to something that we've seen before in Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, where you have kind of the bully at the diner and he's trying to pick a fight with Clark Kent and it does not work out well for him. You get something similar, except for this time it's played a little less for, I don't like in Zack Snyder's movie, it was really just kind of there. I don't know. It was there to kind of just show that, this is a growing Superman, that he hasn't fully matured yet, but this is like that scene, but with a fully matured, fully grown Superman. So you have Clark basically approaching this guy, just kind of like wanting to talk to him about this outside, like grown adults. But of course, he's drunk and he's like, what this little wimp here is going to try to, act all tough. So, you get a very similar scene to what we got in Man of Steel. He tries to essentially push Clark. Doesn't work. I mean, you get him full on trying to push him with both his arms. Clark just kind of stands there with his arms crossed, not even moving an inch. And then suddenly, Clark just holds him down on the table after he tries to swing at him. And, he's doing this with one arm, not even holding him at any pressure points, of course, because it's Superman. He doesn't need to. But it's so interesting because everyone in the diner, including the Cushings that are there too, are just amazed by what they're seeing. Obviously, with the exception of Sarah and Lana, because they both, of course, know that he's Superman. But Kyle, of course, is just like, dang, Clark, because, he has no idea that he's Superman. No one in Smallville has any idea about this. So you get this moment from everyone just being completely shocked. And, he doesn't threaten Candace's dad at all. He just straight up says, if you ever, go near my family, if you ever take something that doesn't belong to you or sell another illegal drug, I'll come for you, and my wife will expose who you really are, and you will go away for a very long time. And my favorite moment about this scene is that when he leaves the diner, immediately you get him going from being, I'll say this, he goes from being Kal-El, because anytime Tyler Hoechlin is playing Clark as himself and not wearing a persona in any way, not trying to act all passive, not trying to hide his Superman self, I like to think that he's Kal-El. He's his true self. So he goes immediately from being Kal-El to being Clark Kent when he immediately hunches over again. It suddenly feels like his muscles go away as he then just kind of apologizes to everyone for interrupting their dinner, and just everyone kind of moves on. It was such an incredible moment. Again, one of my favorite scenes in the show so far. Absolutely amazing. So the next, one of the last 2 things I'm going to talk about, the Jordan and Sam Lane stuff. So, basically Sam, shows Jordan that there were photos being taken of him when at the very beginning of the episode, he and Superman were taking care of a forest fire. And these photos of him do show that he shows his hair, not his face, but his hair, because of course these are photos taken by the DOD. And even though Sam is the head of the DOD, he doesn't exactly have control of what they do with their drones, obviously, and it makes sense that if there's another metahuman with Superman-like abilities, they need to know about it. They need to know everything they can about him. So when he discovers that his hair is taken in these photos, he brings up the fact that, you know, it's somewhat of a unique hairstyle. So because of that, it leads to the chances of them basically tracking him down a little bit higher than he's comfortable with. So he tries to encourage Jordan to get a haircut, saying that if you're going to keep doing this, you have to trim your hair. And Jordan basically just kind of like, you know, says, what would you know about being a hero? And then just kind of walks out. And I love Sam Lane's response, like just being like, I'm a 4-star general. You know, I thought that was kind of funny. But of course, you know, Superman and Lois both like tell him you don't talk to, you know, an adult that way, especially not your grandfather. So he goes to apologize, and then Superman, of course, takes Sam Lane's side, which I absolutely love, basically being like, and he's right, you know what, if we're gonna let you go out and fight crime, you need to cut your hair, okay? So he's about to, but then Sam Lane gives Jordan something. He gives Jordan a new costume. Now we don't have a full idea of what this costume is gonna look like, but he has a costume and it covers his hair, which is something I was very curious about because I follow a lot of these actors on Instagram, and I noticed that the actor that plays Jordan, Alex Griffith, I think, something like that, his hair, you know, doesn't seem to have changed. And so I figured if his character had a haircut, you know, obviously the actor would have had to, unless they wanted to give him like an expensive like hair piece or something, which I didn't think they would do. And I was right. So he basically comes up with a solution to give him a new costume that basically has a hood on it. But then the part that I thought was incredibly sweet about this moment is that he also gives him a pair of goggles that belonged to his dad when he flew planes during World War II. And they look kind of similar to the goggles that, you know, the original costume Superboy, Connor Kent Superboy, that is, wore in when he debuted in the comic books. Very similar to that. So I can't wait to see what this costume looks like. I don't know if he's going to be putting it on next episode or the episode after, but I'm excited to see it when it happens. Last thing we got to talk about is their new plan to take down Bruno Mannheim. So currently, as Lois is getting treatment for her cancer and, you know, getting chemo treatment, she has decided that she is going to start taking it at one of the hospitals that Bruno Mannheim actually funds, and is going to basically be doing her investigation there, believing that because it is a public hospital and because his name is all over it, he won't try anything stupid. Although this is also the same guy that just, you know, the moment he saw John Henry Irons, his reaction was to kidnap his sister, so maybe he will be dumb enough to do something about this. But basically, one of his henchmen just kind of says, if you want us to take out the problem, we can do that, and he's like, if I want that, I'll give the order. But instead, he decides to find out what she's up to, and he basically kind of implies that he's going to be the one interrogating her while she's at the hospital. So I'm really excited to see how that goes, because they're both going to be in the public eye, and they're both going to have a lot of words to exchange with each other. So I'm wondering how this conversation is going to go in public. But overall, guys, again, another fantastic episode. One of my favorite moments, I think, in the entire series that we've gotten so far. Definitely recommend giving it a watch. But of course, guys, at the end of the day, those are just my A+ opinions. We here at A+ Opinions always want to know what you guys think. So definitely let me know your thoughts about this episode in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. But of course, guys, above all, don't forget to keep it A+, and I will talk to you all later. Goodbye.